Welcome to Little Wars TV. We are here at Historicon 2019, and I am absolutely thrilled that we have the opportunity to talk to Lloyd, who you probably know as Lindybeige from his massive YouTube channel. Thanks so much for talking to us.
Thanks for inviting me.
Well, I just got out of your Hannibal lecture that you gave at the War College, which we will have available up on the channel and through HMGS.
It's rather rambling.
It was
I
excellent.
got distracted.
I loved that you ended the talk with an anecdote that I wanted to ask you about even before hearing the talk, is the famous dinner meeting between Hannibal and his opponent, Scipio.
Right.
When Scipio supposedly asks him who the greatest commander is, who the second greatest commander is, always hoping to hear his name and never hearing his name. So my question for you is, since you do love studying the topic, how would you have answered the question, and how do you rank the greatest commanders?
Well, I don't think I'd have put myself first.
Right.
But as for his, I think that Alexander, though he was inspirational, was a bit mad. He did some silly things, crossing deserts just to show the world that he could. He seemed to think that he was divinely touched. And charging on your own into cities and hoping that your men follow you. Yeah, it's very impressive and everything. Makes good after-dinner story, but I don't think it's the way that I want my commander to behave. Hannibal didn't do stuff for effect. He just did what worked. He was a soldier's soldier. He'd spent his life as a soldier. He was on campaign from the age of 9 and on campaign almost for the rest of his life. And I think that is largely how he got so much respect from his men. They saw that he was the absolute consummate soldier. And Pyrrhus, yeah, I mean he was a good general, but he was a bit of a sort of a peripatetic renter king, wasn't he?
That didn't sound very convincing.
Well, I just think that even Hannibal knew he was better than Pyrrhus.
He ranked Pyrrhus ahead of himself.
Yes, but I think that's partly
humility.
Well, let us imagine that this is true.
Okay. Yes.
And there is a strong likelihood that nothing of the kind happened.
It's better if it's true.
And there's an even stronger likelihood that it's inaccurately been inaccurately passed on. If Scipio was hankering to, I beat you, therefore I'm the greatest ever, please say, and you can say, well, there's Alexander, of course, he was terribly good, wasn't he? Yes, went as far as India, you know, and but of course after him, I think Pyrrhus.
So maybe a bit of an insult then.
Yeah, and then me. He had a sense of humour, Hannibal. There's little evidence that Scipio had much of a sense of humour. And I could imagine that, and he was definitely into toying with people psychologically.
Clearly.
And so, yes, I think that he could have said Pyrrhus just to tease out a bit longer. And then there's the rule of 3 in comedy, isn't there? So and the third one, me. Yeah.
So you would have ranked Hannibal number 1.
I think Hannibal is better than the other two. He achieved more than Pyrrhus, fought more battles and more successfully than Pyrrhus, greater victories. I mean, when he beat the Romans, he annihilated the Romans, whereas Pyrrhus famously did not do that.
No.
And as I say, Alexander was a bit mad. Okay, yes, he conquered a lot more territory, but then he died when he was, 33 or something?
Sure.
And Hannibal lasted ages longer than that, and honourably killed himself.
So Scipio doesn't make the top 3
Scipio
for you.
was very good. I mean, Scipio's victory at Lipa, that was a pretty impressive set piece. Although, of course, we have an entirely Roman version of what happened, and he wrote himself up, I think, quite flatteringly. Oh yes, all of this was deliberate. But so much in war could be accidental. Even Cannae, some of the things, the major parts of the deployment were probably all deliberate, but other things could have been accidental. For instance, that famous bowing of in most accounts it's the Celts, but actually according to Polybius it's alternating units of Celts and Iberians, and they bowed forwards and then turned into a sack. Can you imagine how difficult that would be to organise deliberately? You say to a load of Gauls, you see that stupendously big army, the biggest army ever assembled of possibly the best troops in the world coming at it. I want you to stand way out in front of everyone else and be the first ones to be hit. And then I want you to carry on fighting for a really long time whilst we envelop. And it'd be a difficult idea to sell, I would have thought, to those guys at the front. But maybe, because the frontage was so big, the guys at this end could see a sort of straight line to the middle. Yeah, we're in a straight line, because they couldn't see the rest of the army, so they couldn't see that it was out of line with the rest of the army, and the other guys could have been in the same position. Seems straight enough. They didn't know their other position. Or maybe the guys in the middle were saying, come on, what you're all waiting for, let's have them.
Where is everyone else?
They set off early, but the Spanish in between them were thinking, well, hang on, we can't just let them go on their own, we better stay in formation. And the ends, of course, are anchored to the guys who are not moving, because no one wants to actually leave the line.
Right.
And so you end up with this huge, great bowed thing, which then got pushed back by enemy action. But thank goodness Hannibal was in position to organise an envelopment. So
the accident does actually seem pretty likely, because I mean, we're at a wargaming convention, and lots of people, ourselves included at Little Wars, have tried to play the Battle of Cannae before.
Right.
And it never turns out the way it turns out historically. It's almost impossible to replicate that kind of victory, and it's either because of the hindsight of history, the Roman players know, oh boy, we're about to get enveloped here, it's Cannae, or it was just an incredibly tough battle to win, and Hannibal got, 1 out of 100? He got the lucky straw, and that was his lucky day?
So he just rolled lucky dice, and that's why. Well, it's possible.
Maybe.
I'd say the odds are against that, but it is definitely possible. I sometimes refer to the Cannae test, which is, if you deploy at Cannae and play it using this set of rules, do you get the result of Cannae?
Tough to do.
Two guys I know at my local war club Wargaming club claim that their set passes the Cannae test, and they have at a recent War Games event staged a demonstration game of Cannae and got exactly the right result. But of course, they could have contrived matters conveniently so that their rules did pass the Cannae test. But it's a good one.
Sure.
To put a set of rules to.
Well, tell us about you mentioned you're part of a local gaming club.
Yes.
So what kind of background do you have in historical wargaming? I know I've heard you're a big Crossfire fan.
I started with World War II.
Okay.
Airfix World War II Wargaming was the book we used, and played usually on the floor in the attic with lots of little Airfix soldiers. Didn't know what the hell we were doing, but and with little kids, they're like this tank, so they buy one of that tank, and then they buy one of that tank and one of that tank, so you end up with one of everything.
A nice mishmash.
Yeah, on one side against one of everything on the other, and then the Germans win, because if you get one of everything on the German side, they've always got a Jag Tiger. One of the nice things about World War II is the tanks, because they are like a character. If you play Dungeons and Dragons or whatever, every individual is an individual, and you like that. They have character, and soldiers are very anonymous. You've got a rifleman, another rifleman, another rifleman, but a tank on the field, it's got its own thickness of armour and rate of fire and gun and all the rest of it. It's got loads of stats associated that are unique to that particular thing. So you use your Churchills in one way and your Chaffees another way, so I like the characterful nature of the tanks. And of course, they were tanks, which is just innately good. So then, yes, getting into more serious wargaming, Ancients. I had great ambitions to do a Punic Wars period.
The whole campaign,
which I did actually start, and like so many campaigns, it fizzled. Because
that tends to happen with
this
campaigns.
guy gets a girlfriend, this guy moves away, and
You're not the only one to fizzle out on that. I think a lot of gamers dream of doing a big elaborate campaign, and it can be kind of hard to pull off.
Yeah.
Are you still gaming today? I mean, are you still
Yes,
wargaming?
not nearly as much as I did at my peak. I used to, for instance, at my local club, I used to go every week. But I've occasionally I come out of the woodwork to organise something big. For instance, I did 2 enormous Crossfire projects, World Crossfire Day and then Operation Crossfire. And as far as I know, there are videos on my channel about both of these, I think. There's definitely about Operation Crossfire, the second one. As far as I know, they were both world firsts. The first one, everyone played a game on the same calendar day. But of course, as the Earth turned, the time zones moved. So the first games were in New Zealand, then it was Australia, and then we had Hong Kong, India, then into Europe, and then loads of games in Britain, and then East Coast America, and the very last game was in Edmonton, I think, Canada. And I'd written very elaborate scenarios, and everything had knock-on consequences.
Sure.
And the second one, Operation Crossfire, was a little bit harder on the players because some of them had to stay up very late at night and others had to get up very early in the morning. One American on the East Coast, the day before we're about to go, said, "Oh, I'm going to do it at 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Is that all right?" No, it's not all right. It's all happening. So it all happened at the same time. It was 4 hour. I think it was a 4-hour game, something like that. And everybody all around the world was fighting at the exact same time. So I had 2 players who were, if you like, sitting in bunkers miles behind the line, and 100% of their information was by email. They couldn't see any of the tables from where they were. People just had to send in information. We've captured this hill. Oh, you have? Oh, in that case, he could then assign more fire missions to that group or whatever, or he could send reinforcements or...
that's a great fog of war component too, not being able to see the table. You're just receiving player reports of whatever reliability they are. And
I was very happy with the way it went. I was glad, because it's what I wanted. I was glad that some people got just so sucked into the table that they sent their commanders almost no information. Meanwhile, others were constantly asking for reinforcements that they felt they deserved. It turns out that running a very large military operation, this would have been a core level thing. I mean, this was a huge operation. It turns out you really do need quite a lot of staff.
In the That's HQ. What the staff is for.
Yeah, in the HQ, all those people with red tabs running around with memos and each one having their own secretaries and their own radio operator, what have you. Yeah, they probably really were needed. And if I ever did that again, there's no way I'd do it on my own.
So some of my favorite videos on your channel have to do with you checking out Hollywood portrayals. You did a great one that I really enjoyed on The Last Kingdom on Netflix, where you were looking at the first episode of The Last Kingdom, and you're just tearing it apart at all, nitpicking all of the issues that they had with it, which was really fun to watch.
I did, when I did that first episode, intend to do every episode of the first series, because there are some gags that I set up that were meant to be running gags. For instance, coifs.
Yes.
Nobody, even when someone's fighting a duel and he's got a coif, he said, "Is this really not the time to just do that?" No? And hilariously, the particular character I'm thinking of, in the battle in the last episode, he gets killed with a sword to the head, and I just thought, I know exactly what that. Yeah, you'd been all right if you'd pulled your coif up.
That's what it was for.
Yes, you idiot. Yes, they are popular. One of the reasons I don't do more is that they take ages to do, and another reason is that I'm very likely to get hit by a copyright strike. And if you put a week's work into something and then immediately it's taken down or demonetized, you get nothing for it. It's somewhat disheartening. But I do intend to do more of that sort of thing.
So my question for you is, do you think, Hollywood generally does a terrible job. I think we all know that.
Unfortunately.
But if you had to single out a movie or a film that comes to mind for doing a good job, something that you thought, actually, you know what, they put a lot of effort into this and they got damn close. Does anything come to mind for you as a job well done?
I would say that though there are many, many mistakes and some of them are bad, and I would say that Saving Private Ryan raised the bar quite a lot. Since Band of Brothers came out after that, and I don't think that would have been anything like as good if Saving Private Ryan had not been made. When in Band of Brothers, when they're taking out those, they call them 88s, they're actually 105s, aren't they? In the artillery emplacement just inland after D-Day, you feel that the air is full of lead. I mean, the bullets are whizzing past. You've got stereoscopic effects of the bullets zooming along, and the way people die, not in the sort of thud way, but they just sort of, you just hear a dink in the helmet, and it just drops like a sack of spuds. And that came from Saving Private Ryan. I think a lot of the same people who were making that were involved in Saving Private Ryan.
Yes, I believe you're right.
And Saving Private Ryan, for instance, sound design was much better. The sound of a Thompson machine gun firing was they got a Thompson machine gun and fired it and used that sound. So all the guns firing, just a couple of exceptions. Most of the guns firing, it's the proper noise and it sounded right. And they even got uniforms and put them onto pig carcasses and shot them to record the sound of bullets going through uniforms into bodies to get that right. So they went to a much greater length there. Coming to mind, of course, are all the things they got wrong, but I would say that they got far more right than they got wrong, and they definitely got a lot more right than what had come before. So yeah, I'll pick that one.
So getting near the end of our time, but something that I definitely wanted to talk about, one of my favorite videos on your entire channel, which is directly applicable, of course, to historical miniature wargaming, was your video about the wargamers who helped to win the Battle of the Atlantic.
Oh, that one, right.
That was a fantastic video, and what really just was devastating to hear is that we have no idea how they played the game. You said the rules, it was difficult, if not impossible, to find out how the war game was done.
Yeah, we don't have a complete set of rules. We do know something. They did, in fact, do a sort of a reenactment of one of those games a few months after I made that video, actually, but unfortunately I didn't have the time to go across and have a look at it. But yes, it can't in its entirety be reconstructed from what we do know. But we've got some idea. They had these interesting filters that they would look through that would filter out brown, and the lines of movement for the submarines was chalked on the floor in brown chalk. So when you looked through, you could see your own ships, which were white, and their arrows, which were white, and so forth, and you could see smoke, and there were various... So what you were supposed to be able to see, you could see through these filters that the players were looking through, but you couldn't see where the Germans were. And so these were wargamers wargaming an action in real time, because normally that's impossible, obviously, but in the Battle of Atlantic you have a convoy taking several days to get across the Atlantic, and they were signaling back to Western approaches, we've sighted this, we think it's this, and they could then look at what information they knew about where the U-boats they knew about were, and they could make educated guesses as to what was going on and wargame out responses. And they had enough time to wargame out several responses and pick the best one, and then signal back what they thought we should do, and it actually seemed to work. So it's yes, there were some wargamers actually, whilst the battle was happening, helping to win it.
It's an incredible story. I mean, and it's every wargamer's dream that we could actually be helping to win a real war. But I loved watching that video. I mean, where I saw in the video, you obviously got to go to the place where it happened. I mean, what was that like? Is that open to the public?
Yes, I was lucky that I got to go in before it was open to the public. They were setting up the museum as I was there. Although, of course, it doesn't mean that some of the shots I saw, because it wasn't fully set up yet, they didn't look as nice as it later became. But yeah, so I got to sit in some of the chairs and switch some of the switches that obviously would be roped off now. But yes, you can go to Western Approaches. It's a museum. And you can look at the huge maps and where it all happened. Some of the most important decisions ever made, I argue, in that video were taken there, because if the closest the British came to really losing the war and getting knocked out was because of the U-boat menace, and supposedly Churchill wrote this, so unless he was lying or wrong, he was most scared of that. That was the thing which... There was something that could be done in North Africa, something that could be done to defend Britain's coasts, but for a while British shipping and then later Allied American shipping was going down at such a rate that if you just did the maths, if that continued, it would have been unsustainable for the British to carry on. Yes, don't if you do go back in time, don't get onto a U-boat. I think you had something stupid like a 98% chance of dying. No, it's 70. It doesn't matter. You have a very, very, very high percent chance of dying if you become a German submariner in World War II. So kids, just don't do it. Well,
I want to get you out of here on a question very similar to how we started our discussion with the famous dinner meeting between Hannibal and Scipio. So I'd like to ask you, let's forget about the ancient setting of that meeting, and I would just like to know, if we were at our own dinner party right now, you've got all of history, you've got more than 2,000 extra years of history to look at.
You talk about being put on the spot.
I'm putting you on the spot.
I could just cheat and say Hannibal again, you see.
That'd be a legitimate answer.
I suppose it was probably more interesting if I pick slightly lesser known ones. How about Field Marshal Slim of the 14th Army, who liberated Burma in World War II. So he was fighting an enemy that at one point had been considered invincible. It was thought that the Japanese were excellent jungle fighters. It later transpired that they were actually rubbish at jungle fighting, but because they were prepared to do it and nobody else knew what the British just ran shy of the jungle. You can't fight in the jungle, that's mad. But he said, no, the jungle is neutral. If there are troops behind you in the jungle, they are surrounded. He came up with new training methods, and he was very trusted. He came across as an uncle figure to a lot of people, but he was sensible, cared for his men, was tactically as well as broad strategically astute, and he knew how to win people's confidence. And he was a very nice guy. He went on to become governor of Australia, and he was what was it, warden of or something of the Windsor Castle. And yes, he was a man that a lot of people saw as diplomatic, reliable, sensible, and he, against the odds, he got the job done. So there you go. I'll pick him for the sake of just being different.
That's a great choice.
Besides, a footage of someone going, well, I don't know, for 10 minutes it doesn't make a great video. So.
Well, this has been a great video. I've had a great time talking to you. I, again, appreciate you sitting down, and I hope that you're able to enjoy the rest of the convention. Are you going to be able to get in a game or two here?
I certainly hope so.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, hey, thank you again. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure.
I didn't even know what a channel title was. Just make sure that you don't forget what it is. Make it really memorable. Make it unique, and just say pick your hobby and your favourite colour. Okay, Lindybeige.
Yeah, that's really.